Oh, I like that.
Top of my head again.
Yeah, ready to go.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, welcome everybody tonight here to the Fire Exec Committee meeting of Monday, March the 3rd, 2025. We're going to call this meeting to order. And just for everybody to know that's online and in here, this meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the YouTube channel page using the following link: www.youtube.com/streams. Item number 2 on the agenda tonight, if anybody here has a pecuniary interest or any other interest, they can declare it now or at any time throughout the meeting. Item number 3 on the agenda, 3.1. Minutes be adopted by the Fire Exec Committee, and that those confidential minutes of the closed session of committee remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information Section of Privacy Act. We have the Fire Exec Committee meeting minutes of February the 3rd, 2025. Fire Exec Committee closed meeting minutes, February the 3rd, 2025. Fire Exec Committee meeting, February 3rd, minutes PDF. Everybody had an opportunity to read those minutes? Yeah. Issues? Okay, all in favor? That's moved by Gary and second by Christian Rodriguez. Gary? Okay. Okay, item number 4 on the agenda, business arising from the previous minutes. We have a couple of items there. That was moved by Christian Rodriguez, second by Gary Atkinson, that the report by Will Davidson, Fire Chief, Director of Emergency Services, dated February the 12th, 2025, be received and approved in the bylaw 17 of 2025 be forwarded to council for approval. We have item 4.1 on there, training for ladder 3 training update.
I thought you were skipping that for a minute. Okay,
What's that?
that's okay.
So, okay for here? Yeah, I'm just going by the agenda.
So we're doing ladder 3 training update?
Pardon me?
Are we doing ladder 3? Training update?
Yep.
At 4.1.
4.1. Yep. Did I get that mixed up?
Well, I thought you were okay.
No, it's
Okay.
I was just clarifying.
Yep, ladder 3, 4.1. Yep, go ahead, Will.
Through the chair. As you know, it's been an ongoing process with the new ladder 3 trainings. We had a bit of a hiatus with the cold weather, so the training division is prepared to go into the next phase here as we get into the warmer weather. So that's where we're at. Nothing really new to report, as we haven't done any training lately on it, but that's definitely on our agenda to do.
Good.
So what costs have we incurred in previous training and what costs are left? In time. And who's getting trained? Like 6 firefighters, 10, all of them?
Okay, so through the chair, just some clarification on what the cost you're looking for.
Which ones?
So no real additional costs for training. We have not hired anybody outside or anything. It's all in-house training,
Oh, training on how to use
how to use the apparatus.
it's all been in-house because there are people fully trained to now train the remainder. Is
That's
that what you're
right.
referring to?
Right, so the focus for the next training will be in small groups of probably 4 firefighters, focusing on the Wyoming station first, as that's where the apparatus resides. So we'll start with that, and then the plan is to get through that training and then get it in service and then train the rest of the department.
Okay. If I may.
Yep.
So is this training taking place during normal training hours? Because you have a schedule of training hours for different stuff. So is this in addition to set aside time?
There will be some additional time as we move forward. Yeah.
So that would be where costs would come.
Yeah, there'll be some time, but we're not planning to hire anyone to come in or anything like that.
Thank you.
Gary, you have any questions on? The only question I have on that is, Will, since we're not trained to run that ladder truck with the auction ending tomorrow on the other pumper, are we gonna hang on to that other pumper until that training is done, or have to let it go when the auction is over?
No, we'll, through the chair, we will move the other unit as planned when the auction's finished. The new truck, at the very least, we can pump with it, which is what we could do with the other one. So we'll be able to do that. But there won't likely be much time required to get it in service. As soon as we get some nicer weather, it's just not the best weather that we've had lately for their first time using it in those types of conditions.
Anything else? Okay. Item 4.2 on. Ooh, sorry.
So you haven't used this at all?
Few times.
Oh, you have?
Some firefighters have been out
In training.
training, yes,
Oh, just in training.
it's not in service.
And when you say it's not in service, why you keep saying it's not in service?
It's not going to calls yet.
Because of the training.
Right, until
Okay.
we have everyone competent or enough people competent. We can't use it at a call.
Gotcha. And what is the timeline?
To get everyone trained, however long it takes. We're hoping in the next few months.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not putting a exact timeline on it.
No, just an approximate. Not a year from now.
Not a year from now, no. But that's our goal, is to get this next piece of training, which is well, it's gonna get it into service, done as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
4.2 Kamlaki shower update.
So through the chair, I know that was discussed previously, the showers were discussed. We did ask for grant money to complete that project. We're successful with some of the money, but definitely not all of it. That also included the extractors for the Kamlaki station. So we were successful in getting enough money to purchase the extractors, but not to do the rest of the shower project. So right now that's on hold. It's not currently in our budget to update those showers. So it's on hold right now.
Questions? Kristen?
Comments, yes. I know it's been in our budget plenty of times and then gets used elsewhere. And it's just, it seems to me these shops we get done. Do you know what the approximate cost here to get these showers done once and for all?
Kind of. Do you remember the number?
I was not given any information by former chief, so. It come to cost.
There was some, prior to me, there was some engineering work done, some design work done, and it was quite expensive to get it done.
30, 50, 100?
I'm thinking about 60, but
60.
I'm not 100% sure on that number, and neither the scope of that work was before myself. But if we want to back up just a second here, it's something we should be looking at together with a cancer prevention program. Just to have showers and shoot for that goal is a bit narrow-sighted. There's other things we can do that would be beneficial to our members, would help with cancer prevention. And they might be, quite honestly, they might be come at a lot less cost. So Showers might have been an end goal at one point and may end up still being. But there's other things that we could probably implement and work within the budget that we're given that will impact the wellness of our workers just as much or go a long ways towards helping them. So that includes things like a second set of internals for their helmets so that they can be cleaned and they're not wearing gear with carcinogens against their skin. The extractors, which we've moved ahead with, just going to help more so than the showers. There's things like body wipes that we can look at. Policy around how we decontaminate, store our gear. So there are quite a few other things to consider than just showers.
I appreciate that. I mean, off the top of my head, I think things that you're speaking to would be ongoing replacement costs in those things versus, I assume Wyoming has showers?
The Wyoming station had new showers put in 2 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Very, in my opinion, my observation, they're not utilized. This is really common in the volunteer fire service. So to spend that much money, we need to look at the return we're getting on it. Part of that will be changing how we do business, how we decontaminate afterwards, which eventually hopefully would include showers and to have those facilities available. Spend that much money right now and not have anyone use them. We might, we don't have the money to start with. We want to look at every other possible means of helping members be safe.
Okay, so is Wyoming's being used?
That's what I'm saying. They're not.
So we spent money into this infrastructure and they're not being used, okay? So it's not a realistic end game.
Well, what we need to do is change the culture. So through the chair, over the next few years, we need to put more of an emphasis on being aware of decontamination and getting that mindset into our members, into their day-to-day activities, into how they think and how they operate. So that, like I said, that'll all come through policies, through what we call guidelines. Because the last thing we want to do is spend all that money and not have them utilized.
No, I agree.
So I think there's a lot of other steps. There is a cancer prevention checklist, which is something that I will be working on with the other chiefs to see how we can better utilize things that we might have at our disposal right now, the things that are more financially obtainable right now.
Yes, carry on.
So do you have you're obviously meeting with other chiefs in other municipalities, kind of go over a bigger, you know what you meant by that, or these chiefs?
With these chiefs, yeah, looking at our own internal, it's like a internal audit of where we're at and where we can
Sure.
move forward.
And do you have a timeline on that? Is that coming in the next year, 6 months?
It'll be ongoing for the next forever, realistically.
To get to a starting point.
Well, we're started at it. We've started to purchase. Well, we have extractors, so that was the real starting point of it, I think. So extractors in the Wyoming station, extractors in the Kamalaki station is our next project. Sinks in the Kamalaki station so that they can wash their face pieces, get all the carcinogens removed from them, wash helmets and whatnot. We've started on a campaign to get what we call soft goods packages. So those internal pieces that I talked about in the helmets, we started to move towards that with our members. We're looking at it through the lens of our operating guidelines now. Make sure that we're considering decontamination when we review those guidelines. So I mean, it is ongoing. Time specifically,
Well, I guess I'm just trying to understand, you're taking this in a different direction. Council, or this committee or council has been under the understanding it was going in one direction, but you're pivoting to a different direction, and it would be nice to have something sitting in front of me that says, you know, here's the cost here, and here's the cost going this way, but here's the real, and here's what is really happening out in the field. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, you know, there's timelines for these firefighters, they are volunteer. They don't line up and shower, you know, everything all the time, maybe whatever the reasoning is. I just like to see something to understand why we. So council can say, okay, we need to invest this much more because you're gonna have ongoing costs with your proposal
well,
of whatever it is you're planning or working on. It would just be nice to have kind of an overview of kind of what's happening there. But something for
You'll have to
consideration, you
give
don't
me
have to.
a little more information on what type of overview I think, and maybe some of the other counselors can help with their opinions, but
Just so we have an understanding, that's all.
okay, so we're aware that at one time we were going to be, and again, before my time, but we were going to be putting a second set of stairs into the Wyoming station to have a clean side, dirty side stair arrangement that was in the plan originally, as well as new showers in the Kimilaki station. So right now we don't have the funding for that. We did have some. I believe there was problems trying to get the plumbing hooked into new showers. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I think structurally wise, there had to be
Yeah, I
some
think
structural
was-
changes.
A little bit of structural, which wouldn't be that much as the biggest thing is getting the drains and everything else, which requires major excavations going on, so.
Yeah,
Gary, you got anything on that topic?
No, I don't. I think the chiefs explained it. I understand, so I think they're heading in the right direction.
Kind of a, yeah, kind of a little bit shocked to hear that time and that we've spent here at this committee and the money we've spent and the firemen's time getting the showers in Wyoming, to hear that they're not used. That kind of shocks me a little bit because it was the firefighters that wanted these facilities. Same with Kamlaki, if I'm not mistaken. You know, the showers are wanted. There was women out there, and by the way, if you take a look back at the budgets in the past, we budgeted for those showers in Kamlaki, but I think maybe it got put over into that office. The budget money was used for other than what it's intended to be used for, which is nobody at this table made that decision, but, and especially the women's shower out in Kamlaki, that was talked about big time, and that's why it was pushed along, budgeted for. But once again, I'm not gonna dwell on it. I mean, it's up to the chief and the firefighters what they want and what they don't want, but to hear that all the effort put into the Wyoming showers there, that they're not even used, yeah, what can I say? So whatever your plan is, you know where you're going with this cancer stuff, and you know, that was another thing that previously pushed here, is that when we put these showers in, it had a lot to do with this cancer stuff coming out of British Columbia. Stuff where, you know, firefighters needed shower facilities and wash facilities for their clothing, so.
and so through the chair, it's not that they're not a good idea and a good thing to shoot for long term. We don't have the immediate money. We have to move forward with some, with what we can. So
If you don't need them,
that's
you don't need them.
right. Eventually, we will see a firefighter. The tradition will change. We will see a firefighter who won't go home dirty? And that's where it needs to get to. We're just not there yet. So we will. We're getting there. The Ontario Fire Service, the Canadian Fire Service is slowly getting there.
So if things change, it'll just have to be brought back here at budget time if you want facilities. We'll get Cam Lackey, chief, I mean, what are your thoughts on this thing? I mean, it's supposed to be a goal for sure.
And there, again, back to the previous administration, this department, I think there's lofty goals and everything else going into that. And they're looking at some of the costs. I heard what some of the costs I did hear that, and I think they were going way overboard. Everything else that everything was being designed to government specs and that accessibility and everything else. And the shower's gotta be wheelchair accessible. We don't have firefighters in wheelchairs
Good point.
we couldn't put them in the washers they were because you needed so much room and everything.
Okay, well, let's leave it there. And if it's,
I would point out, there is a shower.
Yeah, there is a shower.
There is a shower there.
you know, a lot of this talk took place for a women's shower.
Yeah.
That's being left up.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's where, what I was getting at, where it was the ladies that they don't have a shower out there. Proper design facilities. You have to have, you know, sealed ceilings and all that, so.
So you do have women there, at that station. So, I mean, are they voicing any concerns or?
Me, they haven't really.
It's now gender joy.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. On showers, come back like they did before and ask for showers. That's what we deal with, whatever you request in budget time. Yes, Gary.
Just a comment though, like now with the new regulations, gender neutral. It should be also considered too when you're doing washrooms.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have to look at that aspect of the game too.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, just before we go on to the next one, let me apologize. I read out in order here the next item, actually 4.3. I think that might have been what confused a little bit there, but I'll read it out now. Item 4.3 on the agenda tonight. By Kristen Rodriguez, second by Gary Atkinson, the report by Davidson Fire Chief Director of Emergency Services dated February the 12th, 2025, be received, approved in bylaw 17, 2025 be forwarded to council for approval. We have 4.3 there, regulate the setting of fires in open air burning. It's in your package there. The old bylaw and the new bylaw, and highlighted in red what the changes are. Will, do you want to make any comments on it first, or you want to give them a minute and let them look at it?
I can, first of all, comment through the chair that this bylaw has been amended. We've had a long history of working with open air burning in Plympton-Wyoming. Part of my former duties as a fire prevention officer were right in this area of the service we provide. Through the years, we have allowed for agricultural burning of building materials. That is to say, if an agricultural building is knocked down to our satisfaction, doesn't have contaminants in the pile or on the wood, then we've allowed it to be burned. Somewhere along the lines that got very clearly taken out of the bylaw, disallowed in the bylaw. So this edit is reflective of allowing for that in the bylaw under very I want to say strict, but under you know, it has to be clean and has to be the proper material being burned, and it is only for agricultural buildings. So that is to say structures that were former barns or agricultural buildings. are knocked down and could be burned, but not residents. In preparation for this, I did review a number of bylaws. And I felt that in most other areas, other than the minor edits I've made throughout, which are some things were gender specific and there was some spelling, but other than that, in the changes all would pertain to regular agricultural burning. It is also, through the chair, as you know, is also been at least two people who from our agricultural community who have inquired about this as of late. So it's one of the reasons it came to the, and as you know, we're on to that, coming into that season where this would be utilized.
Yeah, and Chief Davis and I discussed this, so I don't know, about a month ago, I had received a phone call about a barn. And I think Chief Davidson had already talked to the individual involved and read the old bylaw. Some of the key words in that, the old bylaw was like demolition. That kind of put a halt to, it had, demolished materials, and that wasn't really, never was the intent, but so we had a discussion and the chief said he would review it, and he has. And as you can see, in the red, the changes that were made to the bylaw. So if you have any questions or concerns, one concern did come to me. And I did mention that to Chief Davidson. I sent an email, and it was about the environmental department, whether they have any concerns with burning. I sent that to the chief, and there is item number 3 here, environmental and safety concerns, is spelled out in the bylaw. Tells you can't burn, rubber tires and toxics and all that. So I won't speak for the chief, but that was a question that was asked and was forwarded to the chief when he put this new bylaw together. Okay, Gary.
Question through you, Mr. Chair, to the fire chiefs. Somebody always goes and checks out before permits are issued, every site, do we not?
I can speak to that through the chair. So we don't have a set process for that. We have primarily Chief Jordan's been doing that, those checks. But not everyone. So following the passing of this bylaw, what we will be doing is making an internal operating guideline to further outline how that will take place. It just internally from our standpoint. But right now it's not every single one. We also need to look at the frequency, and that's even achievable.
Basically, the ones that I haven't been getting around to is repeat customers. I'm not going out to Bob Wilkinson's farm on Fisher Line and see a 3x3 little pile. It's basically a social campground. He still gets things and that. So but the other ones, especially new ones or something hits me out of there, yeah, I do want to check them, or did want to check them. So, but yeah, we do need a process of some sort to document it.
Thank you.
Kristen, any question?
Yes. On page 9. Whereas section 7.1, target 1. That's kind of the paragraph, which is. So I don't know. I think it's near the bottom. The third last paragraph is 9. I'm looking on the screen.
What are we looking for, Chris?
In the bylaw.
What?
9 of 15.
Well, I'm sorry, 9 of 15 is online. I think it's page 1. Of the bylaw. Third last page. Whereas section 7.1, bracket 1 of the Fire Protection and Fire Prevention Act, RSO 1997 C4 provides that a municipal council may pass bylaws. Where it fails to kind of make sense grammatically. Council may pass bylaws to regulating fire prevention. I think it should say to regulate fire prevention. It's a grammatical. Does that make sense?
Depends on what the that section of the Fire Protection Act says. It might be copying their bad grammar.
Oh,
I think it does read as the act reads.
okay, so
We can check it.
and then the next portion would be on item B for social campfires.
What page that on?
Yeah, I gotta find it, cause I'm looking at it differently. Yes, so that is page,
Page 11.
page 12 on this.
On yours, okay, I get
Probably,
social campfire.
In regards to the first question, that is exactly how it is said in the act. So we will copy what's in the act.
so it's their bad grammar, okay. So item B on that. A pit or contained area used for social campfire. It's part of the items that are exempt from. Between the hours of 7 PM and 12:30 AM. I don't know why we have a restriction on when you can have a campfire in your backyard. Quite frankly, a lot of people have different hours of when they're available to do their yard cleanup and things like that. 60, you want to do your yard work and have your fire cleanup when you're at like 9 o'clock in the morning and be in bed by 3. So I'm not sure why we're restricting it, and realistically. As you state with farm structures. It's been a long-standing history and with long. I would say. Probably 90% of the population is not having, are having their campfires at different hours of the day, not between 7 PM and 12:30 AM.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So just some history on this clause or similar to in the past in this municipality. We have this clause, well, one reason is a lot of these daytime type fires are when people maybe clean their yard up and burn leaves, grass, twigs, and such, which is not social campfire. When we get those types of fires, we typically get complaints neighbor to neighbor, which causes emergency services calls. During the hours before and around this time period is when we are typically our lowest staffed. So we try to stay away from having things that might generate calls when we're staffed at a low level. So that's typically, or that's why in the past it had been in there.
I believe I read, I don't know where it was, under the definition maybe of social campfire, that is one of the acceptable uses. So it would be considered one of the acceptable uses for yard cleanup.
It's not included in the definition.
Yeah, and, it's not in that. I read it somewhere. So I would like to see it change, to be more in keeping with a long history of what's actually happening. The fact that people do it and probably aren't even aware there was this time frame. And the amount of nuisance calls you've probably in the last 5 years and. So that would be.
Five general provisions. 5.2, the. It does say about branches and leaves for property where the burn will take place.
E.
Page are you on, chief?
Oh,
I
okay.
went all day, but it's next.
5, section 5. bracket.
Section 5 of the, or page 5 of the bylaw, under section 5, general provisions.
5.2.52.
5.2, number D.
Yes, only burn commercially produced charcoal briquettes or clean dry seasoned wood or branches and leaves from the property where the burn will take place.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's through the chair. We shouldn't be putting leaves in there. They shouldn't be burning sticks and leaves. It's not a social campfire.
We do have a yard waste program that Marcotte does pick up sticks and leaves, so
You didn't know that before, no.
yeah, which we do now.
Yeah. Branches and leaves.
Leaves would probably be considered noxious materials, especially if they're wet.
Okay, what do we,
Well, regardless, I still like to see the provision of 7 PM till 12:30 AM be removed because you're kind of, I want to say discriminating, but you're not allowing people when they're able to do or have their social campfire limiting.
Chair for me.
yes,
Chief Davidson, that provision was in our previous bylaw, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So
Anyway,
I would suggest taking out something that was in our previous bylaw, maybe is better had at council. I think we can take notice of that and then staff can be prepared to discuss that further. But I think if we're going to take provisions out that were approved by council as a whole, that discussion should occur at council as a whole. If it was a new provision, I think that this would be a good place to discuss it. But being that's an old provision endorsed by council as a whole, removing it should be done at council as a whole.
sure. If I may, this is going to council as a whole, isn't it? No?
It has to, yes.
Yeah, so, okay.
I'm just saying, we probably shouldn't beat the dead horse in this situation because I think that change should only occur at council, given that it's part of the existing bylaw.
We can certainly support it. It would still have to go to council as a whole. So moving on. Back to 5.2, in the, where we just were.
Yeah.
In the first sentence. Of 5.2, sorry. Yes, the first statement. It notes a permit unless he, she, I think that should be changed to the person for gender neutral consideration. And then he, she, shall should be changed to the person shall. So just
Or the gender neutral, they would probably be best in that situation.
so what it does say throughout this document, and if you look at the following paragraph, item A, and all throughout this document, it refers to the person. So to keep consistency, that's all I was referring to. And again, that happens in order of item 9. Order to discontinue activity. Again, we're referring to the, in this case, instead of the person, or whoever it's burning fire, we're referring to a fire chief as he, she. So if we can just refer to that as the person. Well, and
We will review the bylaw to make sure before it goes to council that any gender specific terms are replaced with they, them, or specific person that is referring it to.
Yeah, so those three that I pointed out, I think were the only ones that were in there. Item 7.2. Cultural, no. Item 7. First statement. An application for a permit must be completed on the form provided by the municipality. On such forms available at the Plympton-Wyoming office. So I just think that should be one sentence, that first sentence and at municipality. Capital such forms are available, I think would be, make more sense. And that would be it for me.
That last one there, Mr. Davidson?
That was 7.2, I believe you said.
Yes.
Such quality, such ones are.
Good.
Very good. Something? No, we don't. Yeah. Okay, anything, Chris or Scott, anything that? I know you and I certainly dealt around this over the years about you go and have a look. And make sure everything was agreeable and then way they'd go, but the kind of thing we're talking about here, I think we have to be very clear, like if you go in there with a high hole, this is what's going to happen. You go and you knock down that barn.
Yeah.
Break her up into a lot more pieces and you feed it into a fire. And making sure you don't have any tires, you know, and that's what we're talking.
That's been done in the past. I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but somehow the past bylaw changed and talked about you can't burn demolition materials. That kind of, as Chief Davidson said, I believe when he was requested, that put a dead stop
Yeah.
to the permission to do it, because our own bylaw said, no, you're demolition, so that's major change on here. So anybody else have any more comments? We're gonna move this to council for approval with the suggested changes, whatever you come back with there. These other changes and gender stuff, that's standard, is it?
Clerical stuff will change before it goes back to council. The one topic we had discussed would be, that would be a change recommended at council.
Okay. And we're doing that on new bylaws.
I'm sorry,
Gender change on most bylaws.
Generally speaking, yes.
Yeah, it's a standard, yeah.
sorry. With the recommendation. Plus, we're able to discuss. The other item in the bylaw.
You're always able to discuss as council items you want to change that at that point, yes.
I just want to make sure when we get to council, not gonna get told we can't talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, go to watch.
I told you can't talk about it, which, no, we had a general discussion, we reviewed it, we made some amendments based on that. We'll note that there was other items discussed for change, such as the timing of the fires can be held for council's further consideration.
or you need a permit, so just before 7 and after 12:30 AM, you have to have a permit, is that what I'm hearing? As long as you burn within those other hours, you don't need a permit.
That's social.
Or social camp,
Right, right.
or social campfire.
So that's what, so Christian, you'll keep that in your package to make sure you ask that when it gets to council, fair enough?
Mhm.
Right, for you, because you won't be.
We'll also give a brief, in the staff report, we usually add a brief paragraph summarizing what occurred at committee. So we'll add that brief paragraph, just committee made minor amendments to grammar, gender neutrality to be in line with current practices, and timing of social campfires, which is discussed and moved to council for further discussion.
And the other thing that I noted is the leaves. Is that being left in there or taken out?
I don't think that meets as the chief stated, I don't think that meets the intent of a social campfire, so he would suggest that should come out. Because it's not just social, it's not social.
Just checking with it, sure. Okay. Fair enough. Anything else on this before we move it to council? Okay, once again, I apologize for reading out the wrong motion here, but that over it was moved by Christian, second by Gary Atkinson, that the report by Will Davidson, Fire Chief Director of Emergency Services dated February the 12th, 2025 be received, approved in the bylaw 17 of 2025 be forwarded to council for approval. All in favor? Thank you, Gary. We'll be moving this to council for the next council meeting, hopefully. It'd probably be the end of May. Or maybe March, May, because I know these requests are wanting to get on with the burning before the crop seasons and dry seasons, so sooner the better. Do you think it's gonna take that long?
We'll discuss it internally.
Okay, yeah, that's right, Will.
We have some key staff that are not available next meeting, so
Okay,
it'll depend on we'll discuss it internally.
okay, because they wanted to, right, Will, with the request was to move it so they can get this job done. They got high hose waiting. It's the off season. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, item number 5, accounts. 1. December payables. Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions as I locate them. Okay. We're going to the December payables first. Locate them. The just an FYI for the, or question basically, I guess, for the Plympton College, the NFPA 1001 blended training, those dates that have been selected, Chief Davidson, those are the ones we're confirmed for. I'm at the fire college.
Yeah, through the chair, those are the dates that our recruits were trained this past year.
Well, that's 2024's dates, not 2025.
That's right.
Okay, that gives me clarity. Okay, thank you. If I may, Mr. Chair, January's payables. We're paid a renewal fee for who's responding. Is that app being used as much as it should be? I know we've had some discussion over the years about it, that firemen take a few minutes to sign on to that and let you know, but they'd rather be out the door heading to the fire hall. Is this clarity on that one, that we are using it to its fullest?
Answer that one through the chair. Actually, today, we had a vehicle accident this morning, and one of the firefighters, it was right near his house, so he responded in his personal vehicle and provided updates from on scene that we heard that there was patients still in the vehicles. They were in fact out. So knowing that EMS and OPP were on scene, kind of providing more info that we don't have until we get on scene. So yes, it is being used.
Okay. I appreciate that. Easy for, because we've heard different stories over the years, yes or no, and it still is, and it's valuable. Let's keep it, but I just wanted clarity on that. Okay, and is Kelly Morris for CPR and AED recertification? That would be presume that's a contractor that came in to do that training.
Yeah, that's correct. That is our yearly first aid CPR that's done by an outside trainer. And they're at a very competitive rate.
Those 34 firefighters who were done, that's not the whole department. You have them alternating so many each year.
That, through the chair, that will be that's the only invoice we saw. Then that'll be a tally of both stations. Can't recall how many were out those nights. We had a training session in Kamlaki at for this, and then we had the next training in Wyoming. Their next training night was for this as well. So my assumption is that it's a tally of both of those nights together.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, that's all I have at this time.
You want to do January while you're at it?
That was January.
Well, that was January. Okay, all right. I thought you said December. Okay, Kristen, you have,
It was, he did both.
It will help.
Thank you. So back to December. The helmets and the bunker gear, those were part of regular budget items. Is that correct?
Yes.
When it comes to these expenses. Like, is there some sort of like budget? In that, or is like, just, how does that fit into
Or did you say visa expenses?
correct?
Just,
Is that over and above what we give you for a budget, or is it, where does it fall within the budget for those expenses?
The accounts that it's assigned to are along the right-hand side, so it goes directly into the fire budget for whatever account it's appropriate to put it to, whether that be, you know, expenses for training or the operations or office supplies.
Okay.
so we see down near the end of that spreadsheet, Chief George purchased some cones, traffic cones from Canadian Tire on his visa.
Mhm.
So that will come out of our equipment budget within our regular budget.
So I don't get to see the GL budget, so it's hard to know that where this all fits in, but I can see what you're saying on the phone. So that would include like the food and everything else. It would all be somewhere.
Yeah, each bill goes back to where it reflects on the budget. So.
Yeah, okay. And on January, we're looking at the park. The number 3 looked like it had another big expense on it, because I think for our last meeting, we had some big expenses. I know there was ladder 3 and pumper 3, right?
Where are you?
January. 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry. That's me having a crooked eye. It's the line above it, it's the insurance, which I thought was for pumper 3. I think.
So we're good then?
Yes, we are. We're excellent.
That's perfect.
And who's responding? That was gonna be one of my questions too, because we have had a lot of discussions. It's just not being fully utilized, but it is still being. That would be it for.
Okay.
Well, the Fire Pro, if I may, sorry.
here, go.
So the Fire Pro, you have a yearly subscription. There's no like, that's it for the year? For the costs for Fire Pro? Is there any other maintenance costs throughout the year?
I'll attempt to answer your question. This is all, I'm just starting to get a grasp on all of this as we move forward here. I think we'll have a yearly cost based on the modules we have, plus a maintenance fee. Nicole might have more information, maybe.
If we add that module, then there's gonna be a maintenance fee.
Some modules have other fees
Mhm.
depending on how much extra work that module might take for them.
I
So-
assume that's probably coming up in conversation tonight.
No, no,
Oh.
not yet.
So what module then are you contemplating?
We are looking at a module that will take our calls from dispatch. It's the CAD module. Take our calls from dispatch and populate them into Fire Pro. to get our information more in line with giving us the ability to provide reports
So it was gonna come up later on.
in a roundabout way, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any comments. I think we've been pretty well dealt with. Moved by Gary Atkinson, second by Kristen Rodriguez, that the Fire Executive Committee receives and approves the payables for December 2024, January 2025. All in favor? Gary. Okay, moving on, item number 6.1. Okay, that was moved by Gary Atkinson, second by Kristen, that the report by Will Davison, Fire Chief Director of Emergency Services, dated February 18th, 2025, regarding the automatic aid agreement renewal with Plympton Shores be received, endorsed, and forwarded to council for approval. Okay, questions? Kristen?
Thank you. So this is a $5,900 increase that wasn't anticipated, is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. There is an increase there. We anticipated it would be $16,116.40. And in actual fact, this year, contract would be $22,035.36.
So it's,
Yes.
So instead of the 2% increase, they've renegotiated with some sort of different structure of how the costs are gonna look going forward, is that correct?
Yes, primarily to a higher price per household.
Instead of just a 2% in.
I would suggest that I wouldn't use the word negotiated. Plympton Shores has applied the same agreement that they've applied against all their municipalities that they provide automatic aid to. And then this is their standard format. This is the direction of their council from when I spoke to their CAO to implement this format across all their automatic aids, including ourselves. So it wasn't a negotiation. This is the new agreement. And in the words of Plympton Shores, if we don't want to carry on, that's fine. But if we want to carry on, this is the agreement.
Oh, so it did go through council and all.
That's my understanding.
Thank you. And if I use the word negotiated, I apologize for that.
It's okay. I just wanted to make clear that we did not negotiate this contract. This is the contract we were provided.
Okay. Because I did look at Lambton Shores budget. I mean, it appears they get quite a bit of revenue from other jurisdictions that they get over like 289,000 in revenue. A year. So it offsets their budgets quite heftily. I just am concerned with the fact that we just had this discussion not long ago about trial runs and how we meet am I saying that word right? I don't know. And how we do meet our response times for this area, but yes, they could get there quicker. I get it. But at what cost are we now going to incur over to? I mean, everybody has their jurisdictions, I get it, but it might just get too costly to do that. So in saying that, we have a $5,900 increase we did not anticipate. But we have already approved our budget, but our budget is sitting at council for approval. I believe we need to offset this increase. We've already taken a tremendous hit on this budget this year, which I wholeheartedly look at as an anomaly. In some parts of it. I don't know how, I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there and you can just tell me. Since I believe some of your capital purchases, the two in particular, we're gonna come out of reserves, that would not impact our budget a number anyway. Therefore,
You counselor very quickly, and Norma can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this agreement does not fall under the fire budget. It's its own separate agreement, so it would not affect the fire budget. It would affect that.
You're right, because I had this conversation earlier, because I was looking in our payables. And I'm like, why does these Lambton Shores fees show up on our payables? And yet I can't find it in a line item in our budget. So I was actually spoke with Norma earlier today to get that. So I hadn't quite connected the dots yet. But going forward, it sounds like it might be going in our budget, where it really should be in our budget, because it has to do with fire.
And there's nothing wrong.
No, there would be no impact this year, you're right, but.
In the end, if you include it or don't include it, what you take from the general
I know.
to the fire or vice versa, the tax rates stays the same because you're just sliding it from one budget line to the other.
Exactly, that's pretty good. For sure. So we're gonna have no impact. But I did get that clarification today. So that's good. Good news.
Mr. Mayor? I do have some comments on this one. Whether you like it or not, this was a negotiated agreement. In fact, some of the same comments way back then was that we were heavily subsidizing Lambton Shores for their fire. If you take a look at this, they've had 3 calls. We got an extra $2,800 for those only three calls,
On top of
negotiated agreement that we had with them. Way back, that agreement that we had with them, they were getting a whole lot more money than what they're getting now, and it was cut basically in half for the same type of comments that, hey, we're not there to subsidize their whole municipality and their fire department. I believe when you look at what they're attempting to charge us per household is not fair game, in my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, the contract that we have is a decent contract with a percentage increase guaranteed every year. And they've only made 3 calls and charged us extra for them. Now they want to charge us fires, 3 fires a year. I just don't think this is right. I think we should go back to them and tell them, no, we're willing to stick with the same contract we got, same conditions. It's very fair. And they were getting an increase every year. So I'm just one member of this committee. I just think this is very unfair to line us up with their whole fire, whole town. I don't think it's fair. This is a separate agreement to guarantee automatic aid, right? And they charge us extra. I'm repeating myself, but they charge us extra to come to that automatic aid. So I'm just not on board with this myself, but it's up to the committee. But I personally think we should, our staff should go back and just sit and say, hold on here a minute, like you got an extra $3,000 to come and, it's a good agreement for you. You haven't had to do anything. So don't try to make more money off of us to support your fire services. So that's just my opinion, but
So I've again spoken to Chief Davidson has spoken to their fire chief. They have no interest in negotiating. Their direction from council is to implement this agreement across all member municipalities who use their fire services. And they have no interest in changing the agreement. This is the agreement. We even suggested phasing it in so we could, work through it this year and phase it in January 1st of next year. And they said, no, we need to have it in place as soon as reasonable.
okay, then here's
Originally, they
where
wanted it in place January 1st of this year, but they agreed they would retro it to the point where we improve it.
I agree with you.
they want it both ways. They not only want to charge us per household, now they still want to charge us per call, $500 minimum. It's just not fair. I don't think it's fair at all. And when they say they don't want to negotiate, well, they already have started to negotiate by saying, this is it. No, let's go back to the drawing boards with them. No harm. Let's go back and tell them that it's just not fair game.
So you're saying there's no recourse if council as a whole said, we have a serious problem with this. Here's the stats. Here's how much you're actually on a risk level participating in our jurisdiction.
in Lambton Shores Eye, they're doing us a favor for providing fire protection services. They're perfectly happy not providing those fire services. So if we want them to provide those fire services, these are the prices. And again, I'm reiterating the words of their CAO. I'm not making this up. If we want to look for cost savings, they'd be happy to narrow the area of which they respond to and put more responsibility back on to our fire departments. But they have no interest in changing the agreement.
Okay, so if I may, that I see we actually added a street. Is that because that's a new street?
No, the street was always there. It just got missed. So it was surrounded by areas which Lambton Shores covered, but it didn't specifically say that.
Oh, because they went to her house and caught it. I see. So is there a way we can reduce the boundary, something for consideration to help offset some of these costs? Again, these are all in the jurisdiction. Get it? But we can meet the lines. We were talking alone last year, 16,000 plus the plan calls. That was $6,400 we paid
As a,
for each of those 3 calls. In that area, $6,400.
I have no argument against that
school.
because this was a level of service that was previously set by council. After testing their response times in the area, council determined that they could meet the minimum standards. But after numerous public outcry, council at the time chose to go this direction. I do believe Chief Davidson did have his hand up and had something to add though.
Through the chair, this is a level of service to those ratepayers in that area and for all intents and purposes, this is definitely a decision of council to weigh in on, to make final decision on what level of service they choose to provide to those ratepayers. So as the mayor previously said, it probably should be a decision of all of council.
Well, Chief, not to cut you off, but we're here for a reason to try to make a proper recommendation to the council. Otherwise, no sense of
Right,
us sitting
and I
there.
think a recommendation from this committee, but then to go towards council.
I think again, with the other bylaw, we're not, because this agreement was endorsed by council, the level of service is set by council. The final discussion has to be at council.
And we're not
So,
doing that.
No, and I know you're not. I'm just providing how we get from point A to point B. So what we'd want to do here tonight is if you don't endorse this, it'd be noted. Reasons why would be the obvious expense. And we would note that there's a preference on or maintain the existing agreement or negotiate agreement. And that recommendation can be added to the current report that you reviewed it, did not endorse it. These are the reasons why, and then council as a whole would either choose to with the agreement,
We can factor that.
direct us to attempt to renegotiate or look to reduce the level of service by reducing the area of response for forest.
Can we change that wording from non-endorsed to deferring to council for these reasons?
Deferring is fine if you don't want to say you didn't endorse it.
Money we kind of.
Oh, I think, to me, that's a no. Instead of saying no, it's like we would like to consider some amendments. That's all.
So alls I would suggest, if that was the committee's preference, that the recommendation be changed that I'm going to skip through a bunch here. Revenue with Lambton Shores be received and forwarded to council for discussion.
For the discussion.
Separate. That would be a separate discussion. We're getting into budget right now. And you know, we talk about it at the budget, the way we do it separately, because this seems as a major issue.
We don't have a signed agreement. You don't have, so you go by the old these. It's kind of a chicken and egg scenario. Although the value is notable, I don't think it's something that would necessarily damage the budget process as a whole. But
Sorry.
So, when I put it into the big budget,
Mhm.
so I took the agreement. Put the 2% on, so that's how we got to the 16,000, and then I budgeted 10,000 for fire calls. Because
Mhm.
I have no idea how many there's going to be, and if you don't have enough, you're kind of screwed. So I always like to put $10,000 there. So the difference between. What they're charging, is 4,000 something.
Overall, it's covered.
So overall, if we only have 3 fire calls, we'll be okay. But it's if we're not going to, like there's 5 calls, then we're gonna be out of budget, but
So I'm not exactly sure what the agreement says, but does it give any timeline? How long they're supposed to give us before they cancel an agreement? Because it is an agreement negotiated, I believe, by Mr. I'm not gonna say any names here, but Councilors went up there and as they did south of here, and renegotiated those agreements. Do you know if there's any,
It's 30 days, Bob, if I.
well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but
And they've provided their notice by providing us this report just before, right before the new year, so.
So in our budget, we currently, in our general budget, because this is not a fire in the fire budget, we currently have the 10,000 and 16,000 in there for approval. I mean, even if we did approve those numbers for our budget, it doesn't necessarily mean we get a further consideration on this going forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
By approving the budget, you're approving a value, you're not approving this agreement.
Okay.
And it's probably cleaner to keep the discussion separate. We know that if we approve it as is, but you can support it, the ability to weather numerous calls is lessened though by approving it as is. And then that'll leave us to discuss the agreement portion at a later date.
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor.
I just think, I think we need to have a little time for our fire chiefs and their departments to talk about, you know, what their response, things may have changed since the last time they did that, this assessment. So I think we need to have their input before we can go on any further as well.
Mhm.
Fair to us.
I believe it says you can cancel this anytime in 30 days notice, so it doesn't matter. We're just putting a number there.
Yeah.
If we use it, we use it, we don't, we don't.
Mhm.
But it doesn't hinder the ability to have that discussion down the road.
No, and I mean, it's a legitimate request, but I think we have to realize the fact how much you said it costs for each fire, 3 fires, and the cost of going to 3 fires is pretty enormous when it's simply an automatic aid agreement. This isn't like there are fire department, it's an aid agreement, period. So anyway, defer this and move it to council for further discussion.
So I think that's probably you're not deferring it, you're just gonna be receiving it. And then forwarding to council for further discussion. The one actionable item that came out of here would have been having further information about response time. I don't, if you want a brief note from the fire department on what their current response times are to certain sections of that response area, that's something the fire chiefs will have to organize and it will take time to do so, which means I would suggest the earliest this report would come back then would be the end of March at earliest. If they are to double check their response times to that area.
It's fine.
Them response times have already been,
At one time, but I don't.
They were done in 2014.
Yeah.
But that was over 10 years ago, so I would suggest that you'd want to check that again.
they're faster now, maybe a little slower.
Through the chair, we won't have data to support any meaningful discussion in responses to that area. The only possibility would be if we were to run numbers based on like in a pickup truck and did some time trials, which I would, that's how it was done.
So it was like,
So if those numbers are still available, they'll still be current.
okay.
If I may, we just had 3 calls in that area. Question that we could refer to? No?
I don't know when those 3 calls were.
I don't even know when Lucky Station attended those calls. I'm
So I was at, no, I was at one.
Maybe the better part would be to get the clerk's department to dig out those old staff. The supporting information that created those staff reports probably is not going to be able to be found. Most of that information was housed, is not available. The staff reports should be though, because they went to council. So we should be able to at least find the staff reports that led to this original agreement in 2014-ish. And then we'll attach those to this report. That way the background information is there. So I think, given the information we need to obtain, I think planning for the end of March at earliest would be appropriate to council.
Yes, Norm.
I can give you the last 5 years, the history of how much we paid out in call outs.
Yeah.
If you'd like that, I can tell you that. So in 2020, we paid $3,418. In 2021, we paid $4,888. In 2022, we paid $2,549. In 2023, we paid $1,086, and in 24, we paid the $2,799. So that
Those are for the call outs on top.
call outs
Yeah.
on top of the agreement.
It's the $500 agreement. So. Yeah. Okay, well, we're gonna move it along here, but I want to be sure what the committee wants here. Like, we can approve this.
I would
Here.
suggest you not approve it if you do not agree with it.
Well, I would.
I would suggest that, again,
Yeah.
that it's, you remove the final bit there and just say that the report be received and then forward to council for consideration. That's, so we'll have to amend the motion.
Yeah, this committee think like. There's one here.
Mover and seconder are okay with that amendment?
Good discussion.
The motion, Chair.
Okay, moved by Gary Axon, second by Kristen Rodriguez, at the report by Will Davison, Fire Chief Director of Emergency Services, dated February 1825, regarding the automatic agreement renewal with Lambton Shores be received and forwarded to council for consideration. All in favor? Gary, thank you.
Nicole, if you want to work with there and try to find those old staff reports. We can.
Okay, number 7, no by. Oh, you put your hand up there. You're just
Oh,
scratching your
sorry.
ear, sorry. Okay, no bylaws tonight. Number 8, no correspondence. Number 9, recommended reading, nothing there. Number 10, new business. Here, any new business?
No, I haven't, Mr. Chair.
Kristen, any new business? Anybody else have any business? Okay, under new business there that was listed, 10.1 surplus fire truck update. I think we all know that's up for bid. Carry on, Chief.
Excuse me, through the chair, I can give you a quick update on that. The truck is on Gov Deals. I believe the current bid is $5,175.
Yeah.
It closes March the 5th, so this Wednesday.
Pretty reasonable price for a truck that's still in service, but
That's a deal.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got more for the pickup.
It's 5,500 now. Okay.
is it fit? Yeah, it could jump. but
Speak.
We
Just
were
the-
told it would bring 30 to 40,000 to put in our coffers. We were.
You search long enough for the right buyer, you
Well,
probably.
we were being realistic.
Not over with yet.
Okay, yeah, but we'll keep an eye. It can jump up the last hours for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, thanks, Chief. 10.2, joint health and safety discussion.
I can speak to that as well through the chair. I'm not really sure what the background of how that got put on the agenda, but just to give you a brief overview, we are actively updating all of our health and safety, joint health and safety programs within the department. So that includes joint health safety committees at both stations. We are now getting our members trained, certified as joint health and safety members as required. And we have a schedule of proper meetings that will be followed. And the first meetings are to take place in March. The date 17th and 24th, I believe, of March. And we have Nicole, who will be part of that now to make sure there's an agenda and minutes taken. So we are taking it serious and it will be done.
Thank you, sir. Kristen?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it was my Southwest for on the agenda, because I hadn't heard anything because what you stated, I think 3 or 4 meetings back, so I haven't heard anything since then. So, and it sounds like the training.
Training part is still continuing. We have both worker and management that's being trained. So until the time that our management reps are trained, I will sit on the committees myself as a trained management rep.
Yeah, and then we just very infrequently, I don't think we've very infrequently see those committee meeting minutes. So that's why I wanted to get back on track. So it sounds like you've got dates now, and then it can get.
The meetings are quarterly.
Yes, correct. That's right. I've only seen one in the last year, so. Okay. That was it. Thank
Any
you.
question on this? Okay, 10.3 fire call discussion. Kristen, this,
Yes, it was something else I asked for, but I believe our fire chief has kind of alluded to what needs to be done to provide that information to us in a previous discussion. So if you want to expand on that.
Okay, so to be clear, then we're talking about the providing fire reports to council, to the executive committee. So yeah, this is absolutely something that we've recognized it needs to be done. It's a discussion that you and I had early on. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We are not in a position right now to give you great data. We're not in the position of where we need to be. So and with Nicole and I are working on getting us on track for reporting. Some of that comes through FirePro. So get you the data that you need as a counselor. And we can report properly to the province, which is quite a challenge under the system we're currently operating under. So this all starts with when the page comes in, when the firefighters are on scene, the information they're collecting, so that needs to be changed. Need some clear forms for our firefighters to collect data. And then when they're back in the station, some clear forms for them to put that data onto where that then comes to administration and we enter that data. So in preparation for this, I've been reviewing NFPA 1720, which is the standard for the organization and development of fire suppression operations for volunteer fire departments. So in that standard, it does tell us things that we have to report on. So the report that comes to you as council will be based on that. I'll make sure that I report on those things out of the standard. And then we do have the opportunity to expand on it a little bit. So you and I had talked, Kristen, about reporting on things like public education activities and the number of inspections that are being done. So I have that in my note. That's not part of the standard to report on, but that's part of what I had considered to put into the report.
On that
Sure.
point. Inspections, not so much. I mean, obviously, if there are some, because my understanding, and I think I've heard it repetitively, it's a complaint-based inspection, not necessarily a proactive. Correct to that?
Not always.
Okay, not always.
Yeah.
But so there really isn't like a schedule of I'm going here, this month and here, that month. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So if you were, it would be nice to have that, but it didn't sound like that was occurring. It wasn't cost effective. It wasn't just resource.
Right, but I think it's important for you to know the frequency that we're getting asked to
Sure.
provide those services.
Yes, for sure. The public education part was more of I get it, we have it on the website, but when I look at other, like, I just think there needs to be some sort of one place of, we have this in place and this is how it's implemented. We have this place, this is how it's implemented. we're proactively. I know we do a fire education week, we're going to all the schools. Patients at nursing homes, like when I was reading the risk assessment, where should you be expanding on those public education things? And what kind of guidelines do we have in place then for whoever's doing it? You can just hand it to them, here. You see what I mean? And it's just kind of, doesn't seem to be all.
Well,
Nice.
let's,
Yeah,
through
so
the
that's
chair,
kind of what I was,
I think we need to start with the data. We need to make sure
Yes.
that we can get you the data.
yeah,
So I can tell you how many. We're doing public educational activity based on when people request it. And when we see a need to do it, such as maybe in our mail outs, tax time,
no,
things like that. So. We need to let you know what we're doing, and then from there we can. Maybe recognize where we can expand on and better communicate that.
yeah.
But right now, my priority is to get. To get the data.
Mhm.
We need it anyways. We need it for reporting. There's some very big redundancies happening right now that are not it's not a very efficient way of collecting data. It has room for lots of margins for error. So I want to get that more in line. And then what I think what you'll expect to see is a quarterly report on a number of those items. So it'll be calls by type. The standard speaks to minimum staffing requirements, so the reports have to tell about, if we met those minimums. So that'll be included in it. And then response times. So the standard's pretty heavy on response times and minimum staffing requirements. So that's where I'm headed with it.
Sure, and then, when I was reading if I may, sorry. Have this whole conversation. If I may, so the, in the risk assessment, you were speaking to like. More so within the fire services, but a lot of these things are what. Helps council, fire communities to determine where we need to pivot, change, what type of vehicles should we have on. It helps us, what kind of budget should we have based on how many fire, right? So that's why all this stuff is important, obviously. So even types of structures was a big one. Because I think that's one of the big reasons where, like the ladder truck. Was heavily promoted to us because of structures changing, the types of structures and the intense heat, and things like that. So knowing. Do we do 8 calls a year? Do we do 20 calls? Do we, you know what I mean? All those nice things that's, I've been asking for a very long time. So I'd really like to see some action, hopefully with, now you were speaking on this, module that may help accomplish this.
Yeah, so this is the CAD, called the CAD module, and it would help us import some of that data that we get from dispatch into the Fire Pro, and then turn into a provincial reporting. So a lot of the things you're talking about, though, in your previous comments were very much relate back to the standard to NFP 1720. It does have a reporting requirement to council on an annual basis. So what I would propose is quarterly. And then specifically, it talks about a report every 4 years. So that's when you'd give an annual report to summarize everything. I would give an annual report to summarize everything. And then every 4 years, we take a look at things that are very specific to your master fire plan, that type of language where here's where we need to shift to meet this level of service. Here's where we're falling short, maybe where we're doing better, and where we need to look at for budgeting purposes over the next number of years.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
we're gonna have to move on because we got some stuff to do here and closed and this
Mhm.
room is booked. So, yeah, so you can.
So, yeah.
Like that or.
So just as a final note, Larry, you're not gonna have data right away. You have to get all this back end stuff done to get you that finished product. So it is being worked on, and it will be to you as quickly as we can get it.
And I have one final question. Do we have it in our budget, or will that come back with whatever your staff report is that you know, here's the costs to implement this, and it's something we're gonna have to,
I'm not looking at extra costs to implement any of this.
oh, okay.
All within our budget from what I can see right now. anyways.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Okay, moving on here, that's it for new business. Have anything? So we're gonna be, for those online, we're gonna be moving into an in-camera meeting. And, we'll be coming out with, in-camera and closing off the regular meeting. So going into close.
I'll get the door.